Hello out there. My name is David Horton, and I'm proud to be one of the pastors at St. Luke's Methodist here in Houston. That's right, Houston. We have been in the news a lot recently because of the surge in COVID cases and COVID hospitalizations. Every time I turn on the news right now, there's just the word Houston. If you're watching this in Houston or even outside of Houston, maybe you're like me and you find yourself needing a lot more faith these days. That's what I want to talk about today, faith. I confess I'm asking God for more faith. Faith that God will provide for me, provide for my family, keep us safe. Faith that God will take care of my church, even though I can't be with you. Faith that God will take care of our city, keep us all together. Faith. All faith really is trust. Trust. In fact, you could flip through the pages of Scripture and substitute the word faith with trust every time, and you'd get mostly the same meaning. Whenever you put your faith in someone or something, you're putting your trust in them. You put your trust in God. You put your trust in your spouse, your family, friendships, your country. And faith is for those times in life when things are not certain. That's why faith always has room for doubt, because faith is precisely for times of doubt, when you can't really predict what's going to happen, when there's a level of uncontrollability to things, even a level of chaos, like this season we're living in now. That's when we need faith the most. In fact, when you set your alarm to wake yourself up in the morning, that's an act of faith. You're trusting that the sun's going to rise tomorrow morning, even though you can't be 100% sure. You're trusting that the morning will be there. You're trusting that you will be there. You don't know. I can't know. Faith is precisely for moments like these, seasons like these, where doubt is everywhere. It's a choice you make. It takes courage to choose trust. In fact, maybe our working definition of faith should be, faith is the courage to choose to trust. It takes courage to choose to trust. There are other ways we could encounter the sheer uncontrollability of life sometimes. We could just freeze and get stuck. You could just leave it all up to fortune. Roll the dice, see what happens. Or you could choose fear. That's what I do most of the time, I think. I worry, I panic, I fret. Or you could have faith. Those are the 4 F's I want you to take away today. When we're faced with just, the uncontrollability of life, sometimes we freeze. Sometimes we leave it to fortune. Sometimes we fear. But in times like these, let me ask you, how's your faith? Are you choosing to trust? Are you taking the way of courage? Because faith is the courage to choose to trust. You know what faith does? Faith asks the question, what now? What now? What are we going to do now? There's this really powerful story in the book of Genesis. Genesis chapter 22. It's actually one of the more troubling stories in all of Scripture. It's when God tests Abraham's faith. God tells Abraham to sacrifice his son, the son whom he loves the most, Isaac. It's a really troubling story. Why would God ask something like this? It's supposed to see what kind of faith this man, Abraham, has. Well, as the story goes on, it turns out that God is really testing both of their faiths, Abraham's and Isaac's. Will Isaac go along with this? There's this really powerful verse here in the story. It's Genesis chapter 2, verse 8. Abraham said, God himself will provide the lamb for a burnt offering, my son. So the two of them walked on together. That two of them walked on together piece has always been kind of chilling to me. Like it strikes to the core that these two people in this impossible situation where the future is unknown and what they think really could happen is just absolutely terrifying, they take courage and they choose to trust that God will provide even in an impossible situation like this. Friends, here in Houston, the situation feels a little impossible, doesn't it? At least it does to me. How are we going to get out of this? We've been in this situation for over 3 months now, and the moment it looked like things were clearing up, well, we saw the surge in cases. What are we going to do now? What are we going to do now? Maybe this is a test of our faith. I don't think God is like causing COVID or causing any of this disaster to happen to us. But even still, the situation itself is a test. Will we trust? Will we have the courage to choose to trust? Let me tell you one quick story, and then I'll leave you. I was 14 years old, and I was babysitting two of my cousins, Nathaniel and Ethan. They were 4 and 5 years old at the time. They are now in college, both of those boys, back home in North Carolina. I was babysitting them. Their parents, some of my favorite cousins, they were out having a date night, and they had paid for pizza for the three of us, me and the two boys. After pizza was over, we went outside their house, and I chased them around the yard. We played hide and seek. We had a great time, and we went back into their garage, climbed the 2 steps to go back into the house, and I pulled on the door to open the house, and it was locked. I had locked us out of their house. I was on the job babysitting these 2 young boys. I had locked us out of the house. I didn't know what to do. I was a kid myself. I was 14 years old. I'd never done this. I didn't have a key to the house. It wasn't my house. 4 and 5-year-old boys are looking up to me. What are we going to do? And in fact, that's the question they asked me. Nathaniel, 5 years old, he looks at me in the eye and says, "David, what are we going to do now? What are we going to do now?" See, friends, that's a picture of childlike faith. The kind of faith that I hope God gives me more of, that I hope God gives you more of, because he didn't panic, he didn't freeze, he didn't leave it up to chance. He trusted me. He trusted that the 3 of us were going to get through that locked door, and that somehow I was going to make it happen. He put his faith, he put his trust in me, even when he had clear evidence that this kid doesn't know what he's doing. I ended up breaking into the house. That's another devotional. Friends, my invitation for you is take courage. Have the courage to choose to trust. These are times where it feels like, well, it's impossible. How long, O Lord, how long will this season of COVID continue? Where we are faced with no easy answers, only just really hard solutions. And so I pray that you would have the faith of a child, where you go to God and say, "What now? What are we going to do now, God? What are we going to do today?" God bless you.